Alright, how are you doing? This is another video about something I find very important. Let's find out, guys, what it is. It is that a lot of people out there say when they enter relationships, when things are good, obviously everything is nice and dandy. But oftentimes, human relationships are not really that simple. They tend to be quite complicated and complex in many ways, on certain levels, because a lot of people are entangled in unhealed mental, emotional, energetic wounds from their past that they also carry from their parents and their grandparents and from many generations. So when people enter relationships, they bring a lot of their own unhealed, unresolved issues. Sometimes looking for someone else to heal that for them or to resolve it for them somehow by creating unrealistic expectations that some other human being will somehow make them happy and take away their pain and make them feel loved and understood and heard, etc., accepted and approved of, or feel lovable. But that's the farthest from the truth, because those unmet needs are ours alone to take care of. And a lot of people tend to put this responsibility onto their partners with tremendously unrealistic expectations that are completely unhealthy and set the relationship for failure in the long run, even in the short run. But the bottom line is, we live in a society these days where people base their idea about relationships on some fantasies, like things like Hollywood movies and Disney and stuff like that. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, absolutely crazy. People are looking for. I mean, do you know anyone who's perfect? Do you know anyone who is not flawed? Who doesn't have any? Who never makes mistakes or whatever? We all do, and we all will. That's part of life, and that's part of being human. It's like learning to walk. Life is about learning and growth, even learning to love. I don't personally think we really know what love really is, but we'll talk about it another time. Because a lot of people use the word love, for example, as so loosely, but yet at the same time, they can't accept another person's flaws or weaknesses or mistake that they make. And if that's the case, that there is no freaking way you can love somebody as a whole, because love entails acceptance of both the good and not so good sides of another human being, playfully and in a compassionate, wise, and intelligent way. And what I mean by compassionate, wise, and intelligent way is that a lot of times people tend to just accept somebody out of some kind of spiritual ideas or ideals about how we should be in relationships, and they stay in very unhealthy, toxic relationships where they get hurt. But that's not what I'm talking about here. That's why I'm saying wise toward yourself and someone else, compassionate toward yourself and someone else, and intelligent. That means you've got to think, look at the situation and really analyze whether it's so unhealthy that, or so toxic that there's absolutely nothing you can do, which leaves you nothing else other than to leave the relationship if the other person does not undergo committed, willful, personal transformation of the things that basically keep on harming the relationship. So many times people, when they enter a relationship, as I said, everything is good, and then when things start to fall apart, at one point they start seeing, oh, there's all these issues with the person. My goodness, they're not what I thought they were. Yes, and indeed some people do wear masks, which is very clear, and we all do to some degree present them ourselves to the external reality, to the world in a certain way. And we are different with different people and different environments and different groups of people, different places. We have many different facets to our character. Of course, when people pretend, that's another issue, because then it becomes like multiple types of personality, sometimes which is quite conflicted with what it presents on from one point of view, but then the way it is from another. But then again, we are quite paradoxical creatures. I believe that it's that's actually a very interesting statement. We are quite paradoxical creatures. We are not exactly one way or another. We tend to be one way, then another, then we shift. It depends on this. We are what we are depending on different scenarios and different situations. At times, so when people enter that stage where the relationship becomes dysfunctional, they tend to say, "Oh, this is no longer serving me or working for me," and I have an issue with that. That's a very typical thing that people do these days. Oh, it's not working for me or not serving for me. Again, for me. When you say that, what does that mean? For me, it doesn't serve me. Like, are people our toys? Are they like a car or an object to be used and just reject when it's the moment you find their flaws? Of course, usually people will say that when the relationship is quite tough, but and that's when they feel like leaving the relationship. But the issue of that is, and the question is also, how often, are people just saying this so that they can end the relationship without doing any work on the relationship, including themselves, without even giving another person a chance, or are they at the point where if they've done everything they could, they let the other person do their own self-transformation, they've done their own self-work and healing, there's absolutely nothing else to be done and work on, and there's no other way but to leave. But I personally don't like this whole thing about does somebody serve me or work, does the relationship work for me or not. Like, again, it's like deriving some sort of benefit from the relationship, and also not really being responsible for one's own state of being, which is why so many people do reject other people, because somehow the other person just does not do certain things for them, instead of they themselves ensuring that they work within, that they are serving themselves within, making sure that they are doing their own due diligence to make sure that they're in a proper state of mind and proper state of emotional well-being. Of course, this is harder in a toxic or unhealthy relationship. So I think the question should be: is this healthy? And how healthy is it, or how unhealthy is it? Because if the relationship is unhealthy, there may be some things which are not big problems. There are big problems, medium problems, and huge problems. And some people leave the relationships because of small problems, and they just and this whole thing about it doesn't serve me, it's not working for me, seems to be very childish, because people tend to presume the grass is growing greener somewhere else, you know. So I find this is a bit of a issue these days, because that's not how human beings are. Like, you know, every human relationship requires work, personal work and effort, and to work on oneself, to work on the relationship, to work on your relationship with your own parents that you've had, because we oftentimes carry all this junk from our former relationships, and primarily relationships with our parents, which settled or set in the blueprint for all of our relationships currently and in the future, unless we are able to transform that blueprint. So that's some food for thought. Let me know what you think. I always appreciate people's feedback. Thumbs up if you liked it, and share it. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. Take care.